Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. Today, I'm honored to speak with Judah Fried. Judah Fried is a journalist, author, storyteller, and an activist. He is the author of Making Global Sense, Grounded Hope for Democracy and the Earth, which is the subject we will be covering today. First of all, Judah, thank you so kindly for being here.
Certainly.
Tell me a little bit about your book, Making Global Sense. What inspired you to write it?
Well, I started working on the book more than 20 years ago. And I've had several iterations of it that have been published and won a bunch of awards. The origin of the book was after 9/11, I saw a lot of laws being passed in our country and in other countries that were extremely repressive and taking away our civil rights and liberties. And so I used Thomas Paine's Common Sense as a template for the book Global Sense, which has evolved into what I now call Making Global Sense. And it follows Paine's structure and logic to build the argument for us really recognizing that we are all interconnected and globally interdependent, shall we say, and that if we're aware of that oneness that we all share in common, then we're going to live more responsibly, just naturally. It doesn't take any lofty authority to do it. It just springs forward naturally from within. And so, for example, where Paine went after monarchy and hereditary succession, I talk about authority addiction and alpha male rule, because we men have been in charge. We get harmed by us trying to be in charge, and it's time we let go of that load. We don't need to be carrying that nonsense. And so that's another conversation, gender equality. But and where Paine called for a revolution, I'm calling for evolution. And where Paine advocated that we declare independence and have a revolution. I'm saying that and declare a democratic republic. I'm advocating that mindful self-rule and personal democracy, both the inner and the outer, of how that global sensibility guides our behavior. And between that, I think that people can start leading responsible lives. That personal responsibility transcends from being a political slogan into being an actual way of life. And social responsibility transcends from being another political slogan into actually being a way of life. And so I'm saying that if we have a global sensibility, those two marry. And it affects foreign policy, it affects commerce, it affects healthcare, which we've talked about, it affects gender, it affects everything, all parts of life, in my opinion.
In talking about gender, in the second part of your book, you speak about the alpha male rule, authority to addiction, and money and power. I found it interesting. Tell me a little, kind of expand on that a bit.
Well, I've been involved in the men's movement since the early 70s. I had a woman who I was dating at the time saying, you're living a lie, and that, you need to wake up. So I started doing consciousness raising stuff, originally in co-ed groups. And then I started getting involved with men's things, men's activities, men's circles and other stuff. And that's been very instrumental for me. So I've done a lot of shadow work, which is active, the main part of the men's movement. It's kind of a Gestalt kind of work. And, I've learned that those parts of myself that needs to be in charge so that I feel safe, which is the typical male behavior, it's an illusion. Because what really matters is just that I'm just a ball of light, walking around this bag of water. And, so if I know that, then I can make different choices. And so I no longer feel the need to dominate women. I want women as partners that we can share, we can laugh, we can rejoice. And, that's part of the reason why my ex-wife and I are still best friends, because even though there was things that didn't make it work as a marriage, the mutual respect and mutual support that grew out of that relationship, sustaining. And so, I'll be honest, I look at how we've recently seen the MAGA stuff touting alpha male rule.
Oh man, yeah.
Which is, first of all, it's a misunderstanding of what it means, because the goal isn't to rule others; the goal is to rule oneself. And they're consecrating the worst habits, the worst male traits. And for example, in a good male support group, in a good men's support group or circle or whatever you want to call it, men can drop their masks, get real, speak from their heart, get vulnerable, cry, rant, rage, do whatever they need to do to be in touch with their emotions, all of the emotions, sad, mad, glad, afraid, grief, all of the emotions, and share them in a safe place where you're not going to be judged, ideally, and the people just listen and be supportive and say, okay, how can we help you process through that? This is different than what has become in some, what they call men's support groups, or they use the term male bonding, which is really an excuse for, for sports betting and bashing women and, getting drunk and all those old male behaviors, but it's male bonding. But that's not what real brotherhood is about, in my experience. So that's what I'm talking about there. The idea of authority addiction. In my early 20s, I became a loyal Moonie. And matter of fact, there's an interview I did with Stephen Hassan, who just published a new edition of the Cult of Trump. And we were both in the Moonies at slightly the same time. He was a national leader, I was a state leader. But it was, I gave away my power to some worshipful, masterful leader, a father figure, because I didn't get along with my own father, but I didn't know that at the time.
You didn't put it together.
It took me a while. What blessed me to walk away from that was that I tried to recruit a rich uncle in San Francisco who had actually been vetted for the Supreme Court. And he said, I can't afford to give up my job. So, this is a who at age 70 gave up his 300 lawyer law practice and started a lean litigation machine. He described it with only 70 lawyers.
Wow.
So I guess I take after him in some ways, because here I am 70, almost 74 and still going. But he asked me the question, do you believe because you really believe, or you believe because you want to believe? This is the same question I would ask a lot of the people that are true believers on the far right, and even some true believers on the far left. But it's the idea that if we are looking outside of ourselves for validation, for guidance, for whether it's moral or ethical, then we lose touch with the inner essence of who we are, which is eternal spirit, light in all its forms. And so it took me a while to realize that. And so I think that this authority addiction shows up throughout history of empires, men seeking empires to make themselves feel good and powerful. Whereas if they really just let go of all that ambition and just had the ambition just to be themselves, wow, imagine how our world could be better.
I mean, it would be more than better. I mean, so basically, if I follow you, let me ask it this way.
I'm laying out a lot at once, I realize.
No. I mean, I think you're doing great. I just want to ask a question in this manner. For those who would look at what you've just said as being sort of esoteric or that's just not how the world works. Actually, first of all, I do believe that is how the world could work. I do believe that this thing that men believe they need to be omnipotent or above everything else, and I think it is the cause of all of the isms, whether that be sexism, racism, and all of those things. It is the insecurities of those who practice it under the dominion of those who use it as a tool that is the issue. But how do we promote, how in a society like ours do we get people to look within themselves and realize that there's another way? It's not being woke. There's another way.
Well, bear in mind that the put down for woke is an excuse to avoid awakening.
Exactly. Exactly.
But I will say that some of the people who have been woke have been doing that same thing of trying to get people to agree with them so they feel good about themselves, which is unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
But, to take it down to a practical level, the subtitle of the book is Ground in Hope, because I talk about a lot of things that people are doing in practical ways, and it extends in a lot of areas. For example, for climate change, yes, there's things that we can do in terms of changing our lifestyle. Like I bought a used electric car. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars. You can go buy. There's lots of used electrics out on the market. I use the light bulbs that are that last for years, LEDs,
right?
And compact fluorescent for a while, and now I've switched to LEDs. But those are simple things. I eat organic and natural, so I don't contribute to the over chemical,
right?
Stuff or which helps my health and other things.
Oil-based fertilizers, etc. Yeah,
all that. And so there's a lot of lifestyle things that we can do individually. But on top of that, we can then get locally involved in our community. And again, if we're doing this for trying to get external validation, I got to get praise from my community so I feel good about myself. That's still missing the point. The light has to come from within. It already is there. We just have to see it. The truth is that if you can approach this not so much from metaphysical, but approach from a physics point of view, everything is atoms, which is made out of energy, which is made out of light. Mm-hmm. So fundamentally, we're nothing but light. And as such, since light doesn't really carry inherent judgments of superiority or inferiority, there's a balance between light matter and dark matter, but it's and there's just like thing of light and shadow, but it's all one. It's all one. So if we know that, then that need for being superior over another, that ego drive, or narcissistic ego drive, as some people suffer, it just evaporates.
Now,
so that's a practical thing that we can do. But this within the community, people can, like, for example, go to school board meetings and fight book bans. They can go to the city council meetings and speak up when there's a bill that's being passed that is just clearly corrupt. I spent years covering Denver politics, and it's amazing. Every time the Broncos got in the Super Bowl, all kinds of really corrupt laws would get passed by city council. Show up, pay attention, tell the truth, and let the chips fall where they may. At worst, we're going to grow.
And the thing about it as well is, if we follow those principles, I think things like autocracy doesn't naturally occur as it has the possibility of occurring right now. So tell me, to close out, tell me, why should somebody go ahead and pick up this book? What should they expect by the time they've read page 213, Begin the World Anew? What should they feel?
Well, the book interweaves essay and memoir. So I tell my story, some of which I've shared here, interwoven with the modern update of Paine's Common Sense. And so what they'll gain from it is insights into themselves, insights into the nature of the world, insights into the forces that are driving us to destroy our environment. We're so close to that point of no return on the ecology. Every summer is getting hotter and hotter. There's just been reports recently saying that we might already be past that point. Now it's a matter of mitigating it rather than reversing it. Mm-hmm. So you'll get a lot of practical information on things that you can do that other people have done. And you'll also find some hope in the fact that I document there's at least 1 billion people, between 1 and 2 billion people on the planet, who have this global sensibility, who realize we're all interconnected, interdependent, one, united, whatever language you want to use for that. Whether you approach it from string theory or you approach it from, metaphysics and karma, it's all really the same concept with different language talking about it. So So that's the main point I make, is that if we can realize our innate unity and our natural wholeness, that's going to start changing the way we interact with ourselves, with other people, in our communities, our societies, our families, and our world. So it's incremental. But if I can say that I'm doing anything, is I'm doing my best to empower the readers to claim the power that's dwelling within them already.
I love that. Empower. Let the there. I know this is a closer, but I want to kind of add to what you just said, and that is, I met a young man at a conference that I went to, and I said, I want to empower people, and he rephrased it a bit more, and he said, what you need to do is let folks know that they're already empowered to be empowered. And yes. I just love the way all of that actually comes together. So, Judah Freed, it's been my pleasure. It's been my honor to have you on Politics Done Right, and with your book, Global Sense, Grounded Hope for Democracy and Earth.
And people can go to globalsense.com, and there's a list of all the places where you can get the book worldwide, and except for some countries where it's not available. And I just released the ebook version, and so that's now available either for order or pre-order.
It'll be in the blog attached to this video as well. So thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
I'm grateful. Bless you for the work that you do.
Thank you.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.
Today I want to start with the article that I brought out called Why is the Working Class So Angry? There is an author, Les Leopold. So he wrote an article titled 135.9 Million Reasons Why the Working Class is So Angry. Then he says, since 1993, 60.2 million workers who had been on the job for at least 3 years have laid off, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Another 75.7 million with less than 3 years tenure have also been let go. In total, that's 135.9 million workers who know all too well the pain and suffering of a major disruption of their employment. Working people understand that the periodic ups and downs of the economy can legitimately lead to job loss. But they also know that in many cases, the reason they lost their job was not mismatches in supply and demand. Rather, their jobs were sacrificed to satisfy out and out corporate greed. I disagree with that sentence. Leopold, I love you, brother, but that's wrong. Most people don't know it. When most people lose their job, the first thing they say, that damn president caused me to lose my job, or he messed up the economy and all of that. That's the first thing that the average American citizens think. That's why Trump can go out right now and say Biden is screwing up the economy, even though under Biden, the unemployment rate went from double digits all the way down to now 4.1%, right? But somehow you can blame the wrong person for it. So Leopold, I understand what he's doing right there, but he's incorrect in believing that most people understand what he wrote next. And here's what he wrote next: private equity and greed. And while he understands it, most people don't. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read his paragraph, and then I'm going to explain in a bit more detail. Private equity and greed. Workers know that when a private equity firm buys up the company at which they work, trouble lies ahead. Just ask the 33,000 workers at Toys R Us who lost their jobs when the fabled company was driven into ground by KKR, a huge private equity company. KKR bought the toy giant for $6 billion in 2005. $5 billion of the purchase price was financed with debt, and KKR put on the Toys R Us which KKR put on Toys R Us books. Then the rape and pillage commenced as Toys R Us costs due to service the debt, pay KKR hefty management fees, and quickly fall behind in competition. Walmart and Amazon, Ali Savarral, writing in the LA Times, wrote, KKR and its partners sold off Toys R Us real estate, pocketed the money, and forced retailer to lease back its buildings, along with KKR and other firms paid themselves $250 million in management fees and big bonuses to handpick executives right before Toys R Us entered bankruptcy. This deserves a little bit more understanding. When I talk about the difference between capitalism and free enterprise, I'm talking about the difference between a slave-based economy where others do the work and some people just profit from the work, rather than a collective economy where everybody is paid commensurate with what they produce. Meaning a farmer is paid commensurate with the food he produces. A banker is commensurate with the service he provides to the society to manage somebody's money, etc. But there is a class of people, the private equity firm, that has no right to exist because they produce absolutamente nada, nothing. They look at you, they look at a company, and they say, aha, there's a company. How can I take that company and make some money off of it? Let me tell you what they did with Toys R Us. Toys R Us, a profitable company with a lot of assets, buildings, and all of that, stores that they own. They own these things. The company, a successful company. And what do? They say, wait a minute, we can take that company and monetize that company. Wait a minute, guys. This is a private equity firm. It has done nothing to sell toys. It has done nothing to build toys. It has done nothing to service anything in the toy industry. So they come in and they say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy up the stocks of that company, right? I'm a private equity firm. And I am going to then take that company and borrow the money from the banks on that stock. And then, by the way, I'm doing this as Toys R Us, right? So that debt belongs to Toys R Us, right? So what is debt? I got an influx of monies. That's debt, right? And it's backed by what? Assets. But again, the assets are there, right? And those of us who did that transaction take a hefty fee. We are managing this buyout. Remember, they've produced no toys, they've sold no toys, they've done nothing. They just went into that company. They have capital. They use their capital to start the process of owning the company, leveraging the company. Leveraging means turning the company's assets into debt. It is like if you own your house outright. You can leverage your house by saying, I will take out a loan on my house. I still live in the house. I have a loan. I pay back some money on a monthly basis, but I have a whole bunch of cash I can go blow on vacations and cars and all of that as I just pay back that loan. They leverage that company. They leverage the employees of that company. They extract fees. Again, what are these fees? Millions of dollars just to do this transaction that should not have occurred in the first place. Millions of dollars they charge the company to teach it how to borrow money on the assets that company has already accumulated. But it goes a bit further than that. They then sells the buildings and assets that the company owns to, maybe a REIT, a reinvestment, a real estate investment trust or something like that. They may sell the buildings to these other financial entities. And then Toys R Us is then forced to pay rent for the building it once owned. So whoever bought all those buildings from Toys R Us and gave them cash, now they're getting their cash back in the form of rents. It's capitalism at its max. That is legal. And that is what caused the demise of Toys R Us. And whenever you hear about a company that seemingly had been doing very well for decades and decades and decades, and suddenly they're going bankrupt, and it's not like the people stop buying a whole lot of toys. If you go ahead and look at these companies' books, they're within 10% up and down, 10% up and down. They don't deserve to be out of business. All those employees do not deserve to be gone, but that's what it does to you. But now you don't have the news media telling you this in detail. They're telling you, oh, their profits have gone down because their expenses have gone out of control. Their expenses went out of control because they're now paying rent for the buildings they once owned. They're paying management fees for the loans that this new owner of these stock took out on the business, and then somehow they want to cut employee wages, etc. It's a transfer of wealth from the worker, the working class, to the Trump class. And everybody talks about, oh, Trump is a businessman, a great businessman. He's a great businessman. Are you kidding me? These are the concept. These are the things that they do to the average working American citizen. And you are always just a cog, a pawn in the wheel. So those who are supporting, we need to run our country like a business. Are you kidding me? If we ever did that, understand that you're but a commodity. Understand what these corporations do. It's not that Egberto is anti-corporations and anti-business. I love business. I have businesses. But what we're talking about is thievery, what we call legal fraud. Because we use the mechanism of capitalism, which by design, they're following the rules of capitalism, because everything is about capital. That's why whenever we apply a tax, whenever we apply a service or whatever, the first thing you will hear people ask is, how will that affect business? The first thing that should be asked is, how does that affect the well-being of the American population? How does that affect someone having a more prosperous life? How does that make your life more enjoyable? Business is supposed to work at the behest of humanity, not the other way around. But capitalism is by force, by design, something that was made to do what again? To service capital and those who own capital. So it isn't the popular thing to go against capitalism, because the first thing people say is, oh, you damn communist, which I'm definitely not. I'm a free enterpriser. I believe in free enterprise. I believe in everybody being able to have access to success. I believe in everybody being able to own their own businesses. I believe everybody should be able to be profitable and make a profit on what they do. What I don't believe in is a system that turns you into capital, fracture you into bits and pieces, and selling you like the slave we have been made to be. And if you doubt it, whenever you hear about income inequality and wealth disparity, it didn't happen by accident. It is a concrete design of our economic system. We've tried to mitigate it many times by creating progressive tax rates that as you get more money, you're taxed more, by ensuring that the profits from companies in the past couldn't be used to do things like stock buybacks that affect employees. We used to do those things to take the evil out of capitalism, or to take some of the evil out of capitalism. We tried it. And it worked for some time between Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, the New Deal, the Great Society, and all these programs that were created to take the malice out of what capitalism does, because it has no heart by design, right? It's all about, if you take a look at the definition, the efficient allocation of resources, which is false, first of all, because look at the healthcare system. The efficient allocation of resources doesn't mean having many entities in there at all. In fact, that makes it inefficient. But that's what it says. And the God of capitalism said, forget about any social programs. Forget about the environment. Your sole goal as executives in a capitalist company is the maximization of profits for the shareholder. No other job do you have. And that eventually results in monopoly. And why does that eventually result in monopoly? Because if you are maximizing the profits of your entities, of your shareholders, etc., eventually you try to eat up everything that is competing to minimize or to limit the profits of your shareholders. Continue with the article. The kind of looting by private equity has since the 1980s happened thousands of times in all sectors of our economy, leading to the needless loss of millions of jobs. Researchers writing for the Becker-Friedman Institute at the University of Chicago have found that on average, employment shrinks by 13% when a private equity firm buys a public company, as Forbes notes. All too often, when private equity professionals tout their cost-cutting strategies, they do not mention that cost-cutting means firing people and taking away their livelihoods. Yes, they want to make more, which is what they do. That's the design of that. A private equity corporation, that is their mission. Their mission isn't to do good for society. Their mission isn't to do good for humanity. Their mission is the people who own this equity firm will go out there and hunt. They hunt companies they can buy on the cheap, leverage it, sell it off, and dump employees as best they can to take that money. That's the design. That is not saying that is a byproduct. That is the design of a private equity company. They're doing it in healthcare right now. Look around your neighborhood, whether you're in Ohio, whether you are in North Carolina, whether you are in Georgia, Texas, whatever. You see all these pop-up emergency rooms starting up. You see all these little clinics coming up. And have you been to one of them and see what they charge and why they charge and how they charge? These are private equity firms buying up all of these things, putting doctors to work for them, etc. These doctors are now making menial salaries, one employee, and then they are cleaning up on the insurance companies, which ultimately you pay for as well. This privatization and framing it as something good for you is the biggest lie. And by you not understanding, and when I say you, I'm talking about those who are learning this today, not understand, will have you vote against your own interest. You know why Donald Trump gets a pass, folks? You know why the media, in as much as people like to say, look how the mainstream media is treating Donald Trump, he doesn't get the treatment that he deserves for the harm that they've done. You notice when Donald Trump told Hillary Clinton, I don't pay taxes because I am smart? Remember that? He's right. Because again, taxes are for us. These guys are thieves. That's what he's telling you. What he's also telling you is, I don't have to pay back loans to bank. I go ahead and tell a bank, give me a loan. Here's the asset that I may control a piece of. I write it up this way. I give it a value, whatever value I want to give it. And you give me something on it. It's the system. It's capitalism. It's how it works. And if you play the game, if you went to school, if you went to let's say the business school, Harvard Business School, or the business, these are things that you learn, and you tend to believe that there's something honest about it. You tend to believe that there may be something rewarding about it, but it is nothing more than legalized theft and antiseptic slavery. Free enterprise is what should reign. And until we understand these features, we will never get ahead. Stock buybacks and greed. Workers are also learning that when hedge funds buy up companies' stock and demand stock buybacks, there's job trouble ahead. Just ask the 32,000 workers in Bed Bath & Beyond. Women listening to my show right now, you guys remember Bed Bath & Beyond, right? A lot of people shop there. My wife used to love her Bed Bath & Beyond and get all those sweet things and towels and all of that. That company has been always doing fine, but it got those sharks saw it and said, we can make some money there. All right. A stock buyback, which was essentially illegal until 1982, is a form of stock manipulation. A company uses its funds or borrows money to go into the marketplace and buy up its own shares of stock. By doing so, the number of shares in circulation goes down while the earnings per share go up. The stock price rises, even though no new value was added to the company. It's just a matter of manipulating. It is not these guys providing values. They are the ones who people revere. Hey, look at that rich venture capitalist. Hey, look at that rich stock fund holder. Hey, look at that rich private equity firm manager. They revere these people. And these people are no better than Lucifer, because their job is to take away money from those who earned it, those who worked for it, and pocket it. by using financial instruments to do so. There is no good value that comes out of this. But this is capitalism. This is Trump. This is what they're talking about. When you hear Kamala talk about an opportunity economy, it is, she won't say this. She would come out and say, I am a capitalist, but I want to make sure it's an opportunity economy. They are mutually exclusive. They are mutually exclusive. They cannot coexist. They cannot coexist. Once you put the brakes on capitalism, what you get is free enterprise in the good direction or fascism in the bad direction. And what she's doing is cloaking capitalism with free enterprise and saying, let's create an opportunity economy. And that is what all of us should want. All of us who work for corporations, we are at the behest at whatever private equity firm wants to come in and say, wait a minute, I can make $1 by leveraging that company. I can make $1 by selling that company. I can make $1 by laying off those workers, because even as they're needed, even as they're the ones producing, I can make $1. Folks, I'm coming to the callers in a minute. Every first Saturday of the month, I have a program for my listeners, for the PDR Politics Done Right Posse, called Ask Egberto Anything. It's a Zoom call, and folks who sign up for it, we talk, on Zoom, video if you want to. If you don't want, turn your camera off, and we have questions. And a few conservatives came on, and one specifically, I think he's in the chat right now, kind of gave me a hard time because he got offended when I when I confronted them with willful ignorance and certain phrases that I use. And I try to say, and one of my progressive listeners says, Egberto, while you're right, I understand what you're saying, but maybe you need to find a better way to say it when I'm speaking specifically to my right-wing brothers and sisters, because you want to be heard, you want to be listened to, you want them to listen to you. And one of them said, yeah, if you're hitting this up, I'm not really listening, we're fighting, right? And I agree with them. On the program, I did tell them, you know what, I try to do that. Hell, I wrote the book, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relative Friends and Neighbors. But I said, you know what, I'm only human. We are all just humans. And sometimes you get so frustrated with people allowing themselves to be used, people allowing themselves to be gullible, that sometimes you just go bat, crazy in your rhetoric. So I'm going to try to modify some of that rhetoric. They want us to remain ignorant on these issues. They do. And this goes to everybody, so I can say it. It's not just to my right wingers. So let's not be willfully ignorant. I have been ignorant of a lot of things myself. When I was a sexist, I was ignorant. When I was a homophobe, I was ignorant. When I learned how ignorant I was, I made the change and I atoned. And in the process, I was no longer ignorant. As well, I could have stayed even knowing the truth. I could have stayed being a sexist. Even knowing the truth, I could have stayed being a homophobe. But that would then make me willfully ignorant. And there's something dangerous. There's something pathetic about being willfully ignorant for whatever reason it is that you choose willful ignorance. There are certain things that are black and white. There are certain things that are debatable. I can debate whether we want small government or big government or right-sized government. We can have a valid discussion. That's a gray area. If you want less services for the government, you're a little government person. You live by the constraints that you've given. If I want larger government and that's what we vote for, we built a constraint. That isn't wrong or right. That is preference. But there are certain things that are black and white that are not debatable, that are provable. And that is where we need to sit, my brothers and sisters.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.
Soliloquy time. The Republicans would have you believe that most Americans are slouches. They'll have you believe that somehow the plutocracy, those people on top, they have to be watching every single American to make sure that you're out there busting your butt and working hard, and that everything that you ask for from we the people, your government, is a handout, and that no, you don't need any handouts. You need to go out there and work for it. Hey, look, I'm going to tell you something from somebody who's from Central America, from somebody who's been all over the world, from China to the Caribbean. Let me tell you something. The hardest workers I have ever seen in my life, bar none, are Americans. The least greedy people I've seen are Americans. But what is a problem is we are governed by psychopaths. And just like, we've heard about the good girl kind of having affinity for or kind of liking the bad guy when they're growing up, Sometimes you wonder, the good guy is sitting down there in class and, he treats the ladies well. And this, I swear I'm not being sexist. I'm just kind of hear me out. They some of the ladies kind of like the bad guys when they're growing up. But as they mature, they settle down and realize, you know what? The steady hand, the good person, the person who cares is what you want. That's how I look at America so often. Sometimes we go for that bad guy being male or female. Sometimes we go for that bad guy, not knowing deep inside that it's bad for us, but we keep doing it. Look, most Americans, I repeat, are hard workers, but most of the people who profit immensely, not the regular grocery store owner or the McDonald's franchise owner or the Whataburger franchise owner or the Burger King franchise owner. They're fine. They have a few $1 million in their pockets. They're fine. They're good people. They hire, etc. But the real parasites in our economy, the real people that take advantage of all of you outside, all of you within our country, are those psychopaths, those billionaires. And yes, most of our billionaires are psychopaths. I mean, no one person has earned $1 billion. No one person can make $1 billion. It is all what's known as excess labor. All the money they have is money denied you. But they would make you believe that they have some innate intelligence, some innate intellect that make them so good to be worth what they have. Because we have been programmed to believe that the way our economic system works is the best and is how things are rewarded. I am here to tell you it's not the case. When you go outside and you see that garbage man throwing the garbage into that truck, making minimum wage, making less than a living wage, and he makes or she makes your life more livable. Think of not having that person there and what happens to your street after a month, after a couple months. It becomes unlivable. Think about that person sweeping the floors. I mean, we have a tendency to believe we're worth more than we're worth. Oh, I'm an engineer. I make a lot of, well, not anymore, but, engineers make a good amount of money, right? And, you go out there and you go out of your office and there's a janitor there. And some of these guys would have a tendency to, look down at some of these folks, hey, I'm the engineer, I'm the lawyer, I'm the this, I'm the that. But get yourself in need of something and you realize how interdependent we are and how arbitrary what we pay, how we live really is. A teacher, the most important profession on the planet, bar none. I repeat, the teacher, the professor. These are the most important professions, bar none. They are the ones who move knowledge forward. Without the teacher, there ain't no engineer. Without the teacher, there ain't no doctor. Without the teacher, there ain't any of the things that make society move forward. Yet, the way we partake of funds, the teacher doesn't come close to being valued as they should. But the stockbroker, who is nothing but again, by definition, I want you guys to not just take my words. Think about the definition of, let's say, a parasite. A parasite is something dependent on something that is stable and sucks the life out of it, or sucks a lot. There are two kinds of parasites, right? There's a parasite that actually kills, and there's a parasite that is just dependent on. And in the case of the stockbroker, in the case of many professions that make a whole lot of money in our society because of the way we have defined things, these parasites are just dependent on but produce nothing. The stockbroker, dependent on but produces nothing. Many executives in corporations depend on but produces nothing. Yet they control our government, right? Because they pay the monies that they've stolen from you. And notice I've used the word stolen. And by the way, I mean that literally. The money they've stolen from you, they use and they bribe the politicians to get their will. So now that, brother, and by the way, this is across party lines. I'm very frank. They both are owned by our corporate state. Every party is owned by our corporate state. Every single one. But the difference is at least the Democratic Party gives you some crumbs. At least you get some crumbs, right? At least we got the Affordable Care Act that most Americans, even though they were for a while, the evil ones tried to make you believe that something good for you was not good. You got it anyway, and now you can't live without it. And we have the new people back in power again. And it's all on again, as Jack was pointing out, with SNAP and all these other programs. Do you really think SNAP is a problem or being abused? Somebody finds 2 or 3 people who go and buy steaks with their SNAP or go buy all these expensive things with their SNAP. They highlight it, they make it a story, and they paste that on to every single person who's on SNAP. Food stamps. But you know what? If you want to know where the people are on food stamps, and if you want to know how much food stamps really cost compared to the tax cuts that they're given to wealthy people who are undeserving because said wealth was aimed or gotten on your back? No. But interestingly, we told you so. Before the election, we told you so. And I'm going to say we told you so. I think it is time for us to hold Americans accountable. We all have to be held accountable for our votes. But we told you so. Right now, and this is the article that Brother Jack was referencing. Remember, during the Trump administration, the first administration, he gave a huge tax cut. He made the tax cuts for corporations and wealthy people permanent. But the pennies, and notice I said pennies, because the tax cut that you got in the Trump administration, which was minute, few dollars a week, something you don't even see, was all eaten up by the increase in cost, not only by inflation. Well, every increase in cost is inflation. By the reduction that you got in services from your doctors and the larger deductibles that you paid, etc., it was all eaten up. It was all eaten up by that. In other words, the little tax cut that you folks got, we menial folks got, that was all eaten up. And guess what? Whenever we say that was eaten up by the extra deductibles that you pay, the extra costs in food, etc., that was saying the following. We gave the tax cut to the wealthy. We gave a little tax cut to the middle class. We raised the prices on the middle class, and the rich people took the money right back from the middle class in the form of higher prices that ate up their tax cut and any wage gain that they got. So once again, our masters got us, and we live and we turn our butts and say, kick me one more time. Kick me one more time. At some time, America, we have to wise up to the game. We have to wise up to the game. They giveth and taketh away from the poor. they giveth and taketh away from the middle class, and it's only one class that makes it. You know, Dr. Theis, who, as part of the Houston Peace and Justice Center, we gave him an award, a Peacemaker Award, last weekend, and he came on to my 3 o'clock show, and we started talking about what's going to happen, etc. And he pointed out, you know, we have to change the narrative. People don't like to hear that it's class warfare, but it is time for us now to acknowledge that we are in fact having a class warfare, and the middle class and the lower classes are losing. A bigger part of the pie continues to go to the wealthy. And this is by design. And this is by design. This is by misleading you, disinforming you, and you making the wrong choices. The choices that continues year after year to take what you have earned, to take what you have earned. It's hard to accept, but in many of the other soliloquies that I've done, I've pointed out that the techniques are well known. The techniques that the plutocracy uses, the oligarchy uses, the wealthy, the people who control our economy uses. It uses all our insecurities to get it done. And in the case of the Kamala versus Trump election, they use to maximal effect gender, race, and the permanency of the patriarchy. This election had nothing to do with the economy. The economic message was simply a cover for people to be able to execute on their innate prejudices. That's the answer. All the complexities that you see on TV, the Democrats didn't come out with the right economic answer, and all these things, all of that is hogwash. None of that matters. It's all hogwash. But it turns out, I will say it once again, we told you so. And now that we have a new president-elect, and now that the policy that he is going to effect on day one is coming to fruition, remember, that is what we elected.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.